YouTube now.
Okay, we'll make a start. But first of all, can I welcome everyone, officers and councillors, to this first virtual ELDC Exec Board meeting. And thank you for your attendance. It's a very warm day, so I'm quite happy for people just to have open collars and no jackets. It's very warm. And I understand we're now streaming live on YouTube. So if there's anyone watching, welcome to this meeting. We'll go through the agenda. It is my intention that we should probably just introduce ourselves first of all, so we know who is around the screen, as it were. So if I could just ask officers first to introduce themselves, and then we'll come to the councillors. Anne, do you want to start? So I just need to unmute. Sorry, just need to unmute there. There we go.
Sorry.
No
Good
problem.
evening, Anne Good from Democratic Services. Hello all.
Victoria?
Yeah, it's Victoria Burgess, Assistant Director Place.
Tim?
Good evening, Leader. Tim Leader, Executive Director for Growth.
Alison?
Hi, Alison Penn, Executive Director for Communities.
James?
Hi everybody, James Gilbert, Assistant Chief Executive.
Thank you. And John?
Good evening, everyone. John Medler, Corporate Support Service Manager and Deputy Monitoring Officer.
And my name is Craig Leyland, Leader of East Lindsey District Council and portfolio holder for quite a few things, but I'll pass on to Councillor Marsh.
Good evening, Councillor Graham Marsh. I'm the portfolio holder for partnerships.
Thank you. Councillor Ashton.
Councillor Tom Ashton, portfolio holder for planning.
Thank you. Richard Fry.
Councillor Richard Fry, portfolio holder for finance.
Thank you. Martin.
Councillor Martin Foster, portfolio holder for operational services.
Adam. Thank you, Martin.
Good evening, Adam Grist, portfolio holder for market towns and the rural economy.
Steve.
Good evening, everybody. Steve Kirk, portfolio holder for coastal economy, training and skills.
Thank you. And William.
Good evening, Councillor William Gray, portfolio holder for better ageing.
And we have it in attendance as well, Councillor Fiona Martin, who is Chairman of Overview. Fiona.
Good evening. Good evening. As Craig said, I'm Chairman of Overview.
Thank you very much. Okay, we'll move on to the business of the evening. First of all, apologies for attendance. Or apologies for absence, rather, Anne.
Thank you, Chairman. Just an apology from Councillor Wendy Bowkett to note.
Thank you. And then just going on to any disclosures of interest, I'll take silence that there are no disclosures. Thank you very much. And then moving on to the minutes of the last meeting held on the 19th of February 2020. It seems like an age ago. So if there's any comments to make on those minutes, I will wait for someone to say something. Otherwise, I will propose that they're accepted. And could I have a seconder, please?
Happy to second, Craig.
Thank you, Councillor Marsh. And then I will just go through the voting. So Councillor Ashton.
For.
Councillor Fry.
For.
Councillor Foster.
For.
Councillor Grist.
Yep, for.
Councillor Kirk.
For.
And Councillor Gray.
For.
I don't think I've missed anyone out. Thank you. So I proposed and seconded, and therefore they are passed as a true record of the minutes. Moving on to item 4, action sheets. Anything to add, Tim?
No, Leader, thank you.
Thank you. And then moving on to key decisions to be resolved by the Exec Board. None this evening. Key decisions, items to be recommended to full council. And so we have agenda item 5, which I'll be taking, and this is the Boston Borough Council and East Lindsey District Council Strategic Alliance. So just bear with me while my papers open up on the screen. Okay, just for background, this has been work that's been going on between the council leadership and senior officers of both councils for the last 18 months. The papers are before you. There's some significant additions that you'd probably want to understand, which I know you've all gone through. But the key of this is the strategic alliance between our two councils, which makes very good sense in these times as we look to better serve our communities and the challenges that face us going forward. So I'll go through the recommendations and I'll make a few comments on the papers and then we can take comments from colleagues. So the recommendations are that the Executive Board recommends to Council, 1, to agree to enter into a strategic alliance for the purposes set out in section 1.12 of this report, effective from the 1st of July 2020, for the purposes and under the terms described in this report and set out particularly in the draft memorandum of agreement attached to it. That the strategic alliance will be supported by a single merged workforce. This will be overseen and implemented by a joint chief executive, head of paid service. 3, that the savings of 15.4 million, and that's between Boston Borough Council of 5.1 million and ELDC of 10.3 million, identified in the financial business case, are built into the medium-term financial plan. Recommendation 4, that Robert Barlow becomes Joint Chief Executive, Head of Paid Service of East Lindsey District Council and Boston Borough Council. East Lindsey District Council shall formally employ Mr. Barlow, who shall, for the purposes of facilitating the strategic alliance, be seconded to Boston Borough Council as Chief Executive and Head of Paid Service under Section 113 of the Local Government Act, effective from the 1st of July 2020. Thereafter, East Lindsey District Council will contribute 67% of the cost of Mr. Barlow's remuneration, and Boston Borough Council will contribute 33% of the same. Consultation should commence immediately. Recommendation 5, that Michelle Sachs becomes Joint Monitoring Officer of East Lindsey District Council and Boston Borough Council. Boston Borough Council shall formally employ Ms. Sachs, who shall, for the purpose of facilitating the strategic alliance, be seconded to East Lindsey District Council as Monitoring Officer under Section 113 of the Local Government Act 1972, effective from the 1st of July 2020. Thereafter, East Lindsey District Council will contribute 67% of the costs of Ms. Sachs' remuneration, and Boston Borough Council will contribute 33% of the same. Item 6, that Paul Julian becomes Joint Section 151 Officer of East Lindsey District Council and Boston Borough Council. Boston Borough Council shall formally employ Mr. Julian, who shall, for the purpose of facilitating the strategic alliance, be seconded to East Lindsey District Council as Section 151 Officer under Section 113 of the Local Government Act, effective from 1st of July 2020. Thereafter, East Lindsey District Council shall contribute 67% of the cost of Mr. Julian's remuneration, and Boston Borough Council will contribute 33% of the same. That the exit costs, recommendation 7, that the exit costs are charged to the reorganisation budget shown in the financial business case. The cost of departing statutory officers shall be met by both authorities. East Lindsey District Council will contribute 67% of the cost. Boston Borough Council will contribute 33%. These exit costs will be recovered quickly from savings achieved through the operation of the strategic alliance, and as modelled in the financial business case, consultation with both officers should commence immediately to start redundancy proceedings. So we go on to the reasons for this alliance. And as I've said, this has been quite a bit of work in the background for the last 18 months or so. And the objects of the alliance are set out in the memorandum of agreement, which is attached in the report. And in essence, it's proposed that each council should retain its distinct and special identity. And that's something that those involved in the discussions were very keen to maintain, that both councils had a distinct identity, their decision-making powers and accountability. The joint chief executive's task would be to combine the talent and experience of each authority's officers to build capacity and deploy resources that are necessary to transform service quality across the board. The goals to deliver better outcomes for local people are at significantly lower cost than could be achieved if it was to continue to operate separately. I won't read all that out, but effectively, joint working will also give the councils a stronger voice in any process to reshape local government in Lincolnshire, and they will be able to promote a common agenda with a single voice. I think overall the report is a very positive recommendation for this process, and I'm happy to recommend it to the board. I think it's very important that the financial implications of this and the legal implications of this have been tested elsewhere. And we know that the legal side of the agreement has been tested by Eversheds, and also the financial advice and the findings in terms of those savings proposed have been tested by Broadland District Council, Norfolk, South Norfolk Council, who have gone through a similar process and were able to critique the work that's been put forward in this report. And they do understand and in general agree with what the proposed savings will be. So effectively, this will be an ambitious project for both councils. And I think it's one that we should be embracing as we look to the future. The future is uncertain, but we should make it an exciting future for our residents and for these councils to deliver the best services that we possibly can for our residents in the most cost-effective manner, and at the same time making sure that our workforce have more opportunity to proceed and progress within both organisations. So I'm not going to say too much more on that. I'm quite happy to take comments from councillors, and what I will do, as I said earlier, we'll go around the table. So Councillor Marsh, would you like to make any comment on the recommendation?
Thank you, Leader. Yeah, I fully support this. I think it's a very good move. Like you said, it has been tried in other areas. I'm just pleased that we are joining up with Boston. I think the future looks very good, and I think that once other councils see how successful we can be with this, because we've got a good record of working with other councils, this maybe won't be the first, and it maybe won't be the first to join our allegiance. So I look forward to exciting times.
Thank you. Councillor Ashton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would just put on record that I am an elected member of Boston Borough Council, but I'm happy to confirm that that has no bearing on any decision I make as an executive member of East Lindsey District Council, and decisions and contributions to debate here are exclusively with the interests of East Lindsey in mind and bear no relevance to Boston. I would simply say that this is a fantastic opportunity for East Lindsey District Council to share the burden of overheads whilst being able to continue our ambitions to protect and enhance and deliver fantastic frontline services. I am really excited about the further strategic opportunities that this might well lead to, the fact that it strengthens us as a district council against any machination that government might have to reform what local government in Lincolnshire looks like against our will, and prove that actually as a district council we can be proactive and forward thinking in the way that we go about delivering value for money and good services for our residents. There is an awful lot of good in this. I'm pleased that it's had the diligence applied to it from our friends and neighbours over in Norfolk who have been through a similar experience, and it has that benefit of colleagues that have been through this and know what to look out for. So with that in mind, I'm confident that I can support it and support it with great enthusiasm. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Ashton. Councillor Foster.
Thank you, Leader. Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly with what's been said so far. I think combining the best of services together gives us a stronger hand in a lot of areas. It can only give opportunities to the staff long term. I know short term there will be a lot of concern going forward. But again, once the staff members have settled down, I think it gives a great opportunity for them all to be involved in larger scale projects. And I think that together we can get involved in those projects with a greater strength for all. So I'm happy to support.
Thank you. Councillor Fry.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I can absolutely, from the included information regarding savings, see how those could be realised. I have felt the potential existed for this for quite a while. Never in my wildest dreams, however, did I imagine that an alliance of this magnitude could be achieved. I fully support it, and indeed I want to offer my wholehearted support and indeed congratulations to you and the team for negotiating an alliance which I believe will lay the foundation for service restructuring, which will hugely benefit our residents far into the foreseeable future. So thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate the comments. Thank you. Councillor Gray.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, I am very supportive of this. Also, as some of my colleagues have said, we've gone through a very thorough process so far, which is very good to see. And this is an exciting opportunity. I think it's important that each council keeps its own unique identity, because we are different and we need to retain that. But I'm very supportive because I can see there's lots of savings with regard to costs, sharing of skills, bringing the various knowledges of staff pools together. So yeah, I'm very supportive.
Thank you, Councillor Gray. Councillor Grist.
Thank you, Craig. Yeah, more of the same. I'm also fully supportive and echo everything that's been said so far. Let me first just thank the officers for all the work that's gone on so far. Because whilst I haven't been heavily involved, I know from discussions we've had just quite how much work has been involved, and people have worked tirelessly on this, including yourself, Craig, for many months. And this is the culmination of a great deal, great amount of hard work. This paper talks in great detail about the potential for back office savings, but actually the rationale for that is about to protect frontline services. So that's what excites me. I think it's really good in that respect, because we're all in this to think about services to our residents, and that's what this is trying to achieve. It's to protect and enhance those frontline services. And as has been said, I think this is actually a really good thing. It's the kind of alliance we should be trying to forge across those imaginary boundaries in Lincolnshire. And I'm very passionate about district councils, both now and into the future. And I think this only serves to reinforce the value of district councils and the role that they play in local government. We are all different. We're all different for reasons. We all have unique challenges in our part of the world, but that doesn't prevent us working across boundaries in areas like this. So I think this is really good, and it's tremendously exciting. So well done to everyone so far. A lot of hard work still to do, obviously, but I think it's a hugely positive step, and an extremely good paper.
Thank you very much. That's very good of you to mention. Councillor Kirk.
Yeah, thank you, Leader. Yeah, wholeheartedly support this document. It's very easy, isn't it, to be obsessed with those big numbers on the first page of the report. You know, the savings to the residents of East Lindsey of over £10 million, to the residents of Boston of over £5 million. So those are big numbers. But I think it's also important that we bear in mind what else is going to be achieved here. We have some fantastic officers working for us at East Lindsey, and Boston have the same. To bring that talent pool together is going to be absolutely amazing. It's going to be a real powerhouse to drive things forward. And it's also, as people have said over and over again, vital that we protect what is unique about each authority, but also share the strengths that each authority has. For example, I know that Boston do a lot of work around manufacturing, whereas we do a lot of work around tourism and promotion. So bring those things together, it can only make each authority a lot stronger than it is on its own. So wholeheartedly support it. And as other councils have mentioned, I wouldn't be surprised if some other councils want to join this alliance and really become a huge powerhouse in Lincolnshire.
Thank you, Councillor Kirk. I think some very good points made. I would echo my thanks to officers who have been involved in the discussions over some period of time on this. I'd also pick up the point as well about the work that districts have been doing. And we are unique in terms of our relationship with our residents, and the COVID-19 pandemic has shown how well we can deliver when we have to. And I think the work of officers has been exemplary, and I have nothing but praise for our staff. I'm sure Boston leaders will their authority. So personal thanks to all our officers for all their efforts. It's been absolutely incredible what's been achieved over this last few months. And I think the future with this alliance will actually be very good in terms of securing all those potentials that we've just been talking about. So I've led on this paper. I'm quite happy to propose it. I'm going to ask Councillor Marsh if you would be so kind as to second it, as he's been involved in negotiations. Councillor Marsh, would you be happy to second?
Yeah, more than happy to second this, and look forward to working with Boston officers and members in the future.
Okay, so we have a proposer and seconder, and I'm going to go through the voting. So I will vote in favour. Councillor Marsh?
Yeah, I will vote in favour.
Councillor Ashton?
For.
Councillor Foster?
In favour.
Councillor Fry?
For.
Councillor Gray?
In favour.
Councillor Grist?
Yeah, I'm in favour.
Thank you. Councillor Kirk?
For.
Excellent. So that's a unanimous decision to support the strategic alliance going forward. That's excellent news. Good decision, everyone. Thank you.
Can I just say something?
I was just going to bring you in, Fiona.
Thank you.
As chairman of Overview, I think you have a very important role going forward as the two councils merge and we look at how we deliver those services. So, Councillor Martin, would you like to make some comments?
Yes, please, if I may. And can I welcome this paper and welcome the fact that it's going to council for a full debate in June, and look forward to that debate. I have been talking with my vice chairman and with Alison Penn about how Overview and Scrutiny can become involved in this process. And this is only stage one of a three-stage process that I think involvement at stages 2 and 3, which have end dates of October 2020 and October 2022, will be crucial to all members of the council. And just to that end, looking at tonight's paper more specifically, I think sort of paragraph 1.4, where it talks about the final shape of joint working and the pace of service transformation will be subject to agreement by both councils. And I think there's probably some pre-scrutiny work that could go into that, either by way of setting up a scrutiny panel or by the major projects group who've been looking at major projects. And that will be something we'll discuss in July when we meet as an overview committee. And also at 1.12, 2B, the actual level of savings that will be delivered by the operation of this alliance will be a matter for members of each authority. So again, I think there could be some input there from Overview and Scrutiny. And finally, really, 1.13.8 talks about a formal review of the strategic alliance and merged workforce would be carried out by a joint scrutiny committee. So obviously more details of that would be welcome, and we can discuss that. It's talking about meeting in January 2021, but again, more details and input would be welcome there.
Thank you, Councillor Martin. I think you've made some very good points there, and I'm quite happy to make sure that this is thoroughly scrutinised as it goes forward. One thing that I would point out, which probably wasn't picked up in the discussion we had, was actually this is going to be a very considered process to where we need to get to. So you're pointing out to that, Councillor Martin, is welcome. So thank you for your comments, and we look forward to working with you on scrutiny.
Thank you.
And now moving on, we go on to agenda item 6, which is basically a budget discussion on how we deal with the financial pressures that have been put on us by the coronavirus pandemic. And Councillor Fry, would you like to lead on that, please?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. With your indulgence, because this is quite important, I'm going to go through it in some detail, the report, obviously starting with the summary, in which we recognise that following the outbreak of coronavirus, it's become clear that several estimated income budgets will not be met. Total shortfall spread over 2 years is likely to be approaching, if not exceeding, £7 million. It's increasingly obvious that additional government funding will not be made available to meet this shortfall, and so remedial action and the use of reserves is required in order to maintain a balanced budget. The recommendations are, firstly, to defer all non-essential repairs and maintenance, to approve a change in the use of reserves, which is set out in section 1.7 of the report, and formally review the budget, the key changes and the income projections every 3 months. And indeed, they also lobby central government for a full and fairer distribution of grant funding to cover the cost of lost income. And the reason for this, obviously, is that we have a statutory responsibility to maintain a balanced budget for the 2020-21 financial year. In terms of background, whilst it's difficult to assess the full impact at this stage of the year, our early estimates show that the financial loss to council should and could be around £7 million. But of this, £2 million will be realised as our share of council tax and business rates income in the 2021-22 financial year. And the full effect of these two areas will be applied at that time, as this is how technical accounting treatment of these sources of income work. Could I just bring to your attention, to cover that off properly, I feel that the budget is an estimate and the actual income from council tax and business rates only becomes apparent at the year end. Then we will definitely have either a surplus or a deficit, which will require for which we will require to compensate in the following budgetary period. So therefore, this leaves a budget pressure right now in the order of £5 million for the 2020-21 financial year, and the significant elements of this can be broken down as follows, and these are in the report, of course. We would expect a loss of around £1.5 million in respect of car park income. We'd expect a loss around 1.2 million related to our caravan park investment holding, of £1 million in respect to the investments and property fund income, which we would normally realise, and £1 million of fees and other charges, including rents, planning and building control income, and £300,000 in additional costs. In order to support local authorities through this period, with the significant demands and pressures that all councils are facing, the government have introduced 2 separate grants of £1.6 billion each. In the first tranche, East Lindsey received £108,000, and in the second tranche, the amount was £1.4 million. Whilst the grant funding is welcome, it's clear that it will not cover our predictable income loss without further allocations. It's almost certain that most, if not all, councils will be experiencing budget pressures, and that if government is to address all these issues, then several more billions of pounds will need to be allocated across the country. Since this figure is unlikely to be affordable, it is likely that funding will be prioritised to councils with most significant needs and those with the lowest levels of reserves. In view of this, and since East Lindsey has a relatively healthy level of reserves, it is prudent and financially responsible to assume that any future grants will not cover our overall budget pressures. Officers have therefore looked at mitigating actions that can be taken to fund the £5 million shortfall to the 2020-21 budget, and these are broken down in the report as follows. There would be I have mentioned our £108,000 and our £1.4 million. So we have received £1.5 million of additional government grants. There is a possibility of a further grant, which we estimate at £0.3 million. We can realise £1 million by deferring non-essential repairs and maintenance. And we can realise £0.5 million in terms of the previously budgeted net surplus to contribution, which we were expecting to make to reserves this year. So we can retain that. There is also the fact that we would normally expect to receive £1.2 million of new homes bonus related to the development in the district. which we'd normally put into the capital programme, into the reserves to fund the capital programme. And we can realise £0.5 million by a freeze on non-essential posts and other expenditure. Whilst it is unfortunate that certain things cannot now be progressed in the year, these changes are deemed necessary at this stage so that we can protect services and focus on the economic development and growth that will be key in the coming months after this pandemic has done its worst. In view of the nature of local government finance at the moment, the budget position and the mitigating actions will be continuously monitored with a formal review every 3 months. And these are the proposals that are being made and that I would like you to consider and discuss. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Fry. I think that's a very helpful, detailed response to our challenges. I'm quite happy to second this myself. I would bring out some of the things that you've mentioned. I think it's very important that we still have the ability to do good things as a council. And I'm very pleased that the way that we're going to be dealing with this is to look at this as a review every 3 months, because I think the situation will be changing on quite a rapid basis as well. So I welcome your recommendations. And I think the management of our budget over the last, over a long period of time has enabled us to be in this position today, which has given you some ability to deal with these matters. And I fully understand why we have to go down this route. It secures, as you say, the services and also the potential for this council to continue to do good things in terms of investment into our community. So I do welcome that. So I'm quite happy to go around colleagues for comment. Councillor Marsh, would you like to add anything to that?
Thank you very much, Leader. Yeah, I fully support and thank you, Richard, for a really informative presentation. I mean, we've time to digest your paper. It really is eye-watering, some of the figures. The only comment I will make, and it's just a pity that through being frugal in the past, we find ourselves now being made disadvantaged because the councils that have just spent are going to get another handout, and because we've been frugal, invested and done our job properly, we are going to be the ones that are going to have to keep that vein going. I know we can keep pressure on our MPs, but I think every opportunity we get to mention to ministers and mention to the government, we should be explaining. I mean, I've been retired several years now from the police force, but even when I was in, and that's over 18 years ago now, that we had a campaign then for fairer funding, and we are still campaigning for fairer funding. And we've got to keep knocking this and knocking it until finally a government has the nous to say, well, the ones that's really worked and looked after it and been businesslike and done what they should do, we will actually make sure they get a fair level of the money. But I'm afraid that's not going to happen for a little while for us. But a good paper, Richard. Thank you to all the officers who have been involved in this, because it's no mean task. And it's fortunate the people of East Lindsey have got such a good team looking after the finances for them. That's all I've got to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Marsh. Councillor Ashton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would sustain and echo Councillor Marsh's words of tribute to Councillor Fry and the finance team for being able to put together a set of proposals which allow us to mitigate the direct impact of COVID on our finances without, again, impacting on frontline services which our residents rely on. And I certainly wouldn't, if I was a betting man, I wouldn't put money on some of those councils which are currently in grave difficulties because of COVID, again, getting all of their losses made good by government. There's no such thing as a free lunch, and there's no such thing as free money from government. So I am reassured that we are in a good position because of the good financial management of Richard and his team, this administration and predecessor administrations, and I'm really pleased and happy to support the measures that are outlined that allow us to sustain what we're doing as a council without impacting on frontline services and effectively take this in many respects as a bit of a pause year. These are things that we would like to do this year, but actually we can pick them up once COVID's over. So really pleased to see it and happy to support it.
Thank you. Councillor Foster.
Same here. The prudence that we've followed over the years, the few years that I've been in council, definitely has allowed us to look to maintain all of the services that are essential for the community. And also with the savings that have been considered, it's still giving us a little bit of leeway to look at other projects coming out of this so that we can move forward economically with some exciting projects in the future as well. So I'm very happy to favour this paper.
Thank you. Councillor Graham.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, over the past few weeks, we've had in-depth discussions through exec briefing with regards to this serious situation we find ourselves in. And I have to say that we've been kept fully briefed as to the situation by Councillor Fry and finance officers. So huge thanks go to them. We're very fortunate that due to the very sound financial management from Councillor Fry and officers that we're able to plug this gap. And again, I thank them. So therefore, I do support the measures because they are necessary.
Thank you. Councillor Grist.
Thank you. Yeah, again, I find myself echoing what's already been said. I think Richard's got a thankless task at the best of times, and it's certainly been very challenging over the last few weeks. It will continue to be so for many, many months, regrettably. But I do think we're in a strong position, actually, because over the years that I've been involved in East Lincolnshire District Council, there's always been sound financial management. Excellent officers over the years who have ensured that we have always been given the best advice and therefore can make good financial decisions. And I think we've done that time and time again, and that holds us in good stead now, actually. And whilst we've got some very, very difficult decisions ahead, and we can't do everything we wanted to do, and we maybe can't move at the pace we want to move at, I still think we'll come out of this very strongly indeed. We are going to have to make some tough calls, there's no doubt about that. But I just think we need to be mindful that we, as a local authority, need to be, in some instances, the catalyst in the recovery, and the need for us to be that ED driver is probably more acute in the next few months than perhaps we thought it was over the last few months and years. So lots to think about, lots of difficult decisions, but I have every confidence that we've got a very good team around us to make every single decision that we need to make. Thank you.
Thank you. And you make some very good points about us being the push for the economic driver out of this. I think that those are the very points very well made. Thank you. Councillor Kirk.
Yes, thank you, Leader. Yeah, faced with a shortfall like this, it is very reassuring that we're able to look at our expenditure and prune that out. A very, very difficult job, and I echo that the comments that have been made towards Councillor Fry and his finance team, the excellent job they've done, managing to prune out this £5 million without directly affecting frontline services. So a huge well done to everybody involved in that. And what I would say, and it's in entire agreement with Councillor Grist, it would be very easy when you're faced with these sorts of shortfalls to pull back from all commitments, but we can't do that. We have to make sure that as we come out of this, we are there for our residents and our business community, that we can instill confidence in them that we intend to take our district forward. And we haven't shied away from those previous commitments. There may be a little bit slurring happening, but they are still going to happen. And we are strongly committed to the growth of this district for the benefit of our residents. And this report sums that up beautifully, Councillor Fry. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Kirk. And so we have a proposer in Councillor Fry, and I'm going to second this paper. And just to echo the comments, Councillor Fry, of our colleagues, you've done an exceptional job with the support of officers, and what you've come up with in terms of dealing with this crisis is going to put us in good stead. It's not without challenge, but it's going to put us in good stead for the future. So much appreciated. So we have a proposal to accept this and second it. So I'll just go through the voting. So I'm going to vote in favour. Councillor Marsh?
Yeah, vote in favour.
Councillor Ashton?
For.
Councillor Foster?
In favour.
Councillor Fry?
Favour.
Councillor Gray?
In favour.
Councillor Grist?
Yeah, in favour.
Thank you. Councillor Kirk?
For.
Thank you. So that's unanimously supported. So thank you, Councillor Fry and officers for that. We now move on to agenda item number 7, which is the disposal of the council's redundant waste collection fleet. I have actually already signed an urgent decision paper on this, on part of this, but it would be useful to go through the recommendations and support the recommendations so that we fully understand what's happening. Councillor Fry, I think it's your paper.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I can do this fairly briefly. As you say, an executive decision has been made. This is about the fact that we've replaced our refuse fleet, and we therefore have now a redundant fleet of vehicles which were in use and no longer are. There are 15 of these vehicles. What we're looking for here is to get the approval to market those by sale at auction. We could expect reasonably to realise £4,000 each. This money is over and above our actual budget, so this is a bonus, if you will, some cash coming back to us. The recommendation is to approve disposal of 15 redundant refuse collection vehicles by commercial vehicle auction. And that's what has been decided already by executive decision. However, to delegate the timing and disposal of each of the vehicles to Assistant Director Place still needs to be approved as a function of this item. And I'm certainly recommending that we do that.
Thank you, Councillor Fry. I'm going to make the suggestion to colleagues that as we've dealt with this in quite some detail at briefing, the principle of what we're saying is understood and agreed, and that we just go straight to the vote on the recommendations. If anyone has any issue with that, I'll give you 30 seconds to make your voice known. 10 seconds rather.
Can I come in then in those 10 seconds? Quick, just
yeah,
a
go on
quick
then, Councillor
question. Do I take it from what
Grist.
Richard has? Sorry, thank you. Do I take it from what Richard said that these vehicles have been depreciated fully over the period of time that we've owned them, so they're on the books for nothing?
Effectively, yes. I mean, I'll defer to Victoria just to confirm that.
Thank you, Victoria.
Yes, that's right. And there was no capital receipt down in the capital programme. So this is in effect a return that we weren't expecting, if you like.
Thank you. Councillor Grist, does that answer your question? Councillor Grist?
Sorry, yes,
So
thank you very much.
It's run off.
No, I'm here, thank you. Yeah.
No problem. You're happy with the answer, thank you. Okay, so on that basis, any other comments from colleagues? We'll go straight to the vote. Okay, thank you. Right, so it's proposed by Councillor Fry. I'm quite happy to second that, and I will vote on that and support it. Councillor Marsh?
Yeah, fully support the recommendations.
Thank you. Councillor Ashton?
For.
Councillor Foster?
Support.
Thank you. Councillor Fry?
For.
Thank you. Councillor Gray?
I support.
Thank you. Councillor Grist?
Yeah, all good for me, thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Kirk?
For.
Thank you. So that brings us on to the agenda item 8, which is the date of the next meeting, which will be Wednesday the 10th of June 2020. So can I thank officers and councillors and Councillor Martin for attending, and we shall see you soon, whether in the virtual world or the real world. So thank you for your time and your attendance. Yes.
Mr. Chairman, can I just add, the first batch of vehicles, I mean, just going back on the last one, sorry, I didn't get in at the time, went to the auctions yesterday. There were 9 vehicles that went, so we would expect them at 4,000 was the estimate for them. In fact, they achieved just under 60,000 on the sale price. So that was a considerable amount more than we was expecting. And if we look at the other six are still going to auction at a later date, it means we could accrue about £100,000 from the sale of those vehicles, which I think is a very good outcome.
That's excellent. That's fantastic. Well done. That's really music to Councillor Fry's ears.
I was just going to say, don't tell Richard else he'll have it.
Okay, thank you very much. That's really helpful. So we've finished agenda item 7. We're now on to agenda item 8, which is the date of the next meeting, the 10th of June. And just to finish off, can I, as leader of the council, express my sincere thanks to all our officers who have been dealing with the COVID crisis.
Yes.
Over all realms and activities within the council, everyone has been exceptional. And I would like to make that public statement to thank all our teams, all our people out there, from the well-being to the economic development, to the business grants, and all the support staff. They have just been exceptional, and that is quite something. Okay, thank you very much for your time.
And